Welcome to Open Range. I'm your host, Gary Emineth. We're going to be talking to U.S. Senator Kevin Cramer today. We had him on about a month ago, and we talked a little bit about the Golden Dome and what's going on. And he served on Armed Services Committee, and he's got an insight into that whole project. That is it real? Can it happen? Will it not? All that kind of stuff. But he's close to President Trump, who's pretty passionate about it. And also, Senator Cramer was in Canada recently talking to the Prime Minister. And I want to kind of wrap all that around what's going on in Washington. So, Senator, welcome to Open Range.
Well, it's great to be with you. And yeah, boy, lots happened in that month. Since the last time I was on, we could probably fill a couple of shows. And I know
for sure. Well, so the last time we kept wanting to talk about the Golden Dome, and we barely got going on it. And the Wall Street Journal a couple days ago had really an extensive article about it. And I thought it was kind of funny because they made the comment that there's three people that don't like our Golden Dome: North Korea, China, and Russia. And I'm going like, well, of course they shouldn't like it, because we're going to neutralize them, hopefully. So talk a little bit about that.
So the Journal did do a great job on it, and they're right. In fact, what's so fascinating, even the scoffers, and there always are some, just like there were when Ronald Reagan first dreamt up the idea of an SDI, of Star Wars, and they scoffed at him back then. But a lot has happened since then. But people not scoffing are those three countries. In fact, they've all opined rather openly that this is going to escalate problems with the United States, and this is just going to escalate, destabilize space. And this is why a couple of weeks ago in a hearing on the Armed Services Committee with the Chief of Space Operations, I asked General Saltzman, I said, does Russia have offensive weapons in space by any chance? Of course, I already knew the answer. He said, yes, as a matter of fact, they do. And he started talking about them all. We don't have offensive weapons in space. They're the ones destabilizing space, which is why we have to get out ahead. The only way the world remains safe from players like Russia and North Korea and Iran, of course, and of course China, is for the United States to be stronger. And I know that there are a lot of people in the populist movement today that more isolationist view that somehow we're fine if we just protect ourselves. And the reality is we're not if we just protect ourselves, because if they take over the rest of the world except us. Anyway, all of that said, we're not destabilizing, it's very stabilizing. And you're right, I was with the president in the Oval Office last week for the announcement of Golden Dome. And even after that, there have been scoffers that get after us in social media and other places.
Well, I mean, I think the fact that you have been on Armed Services as a North Dakotan, which is first time that I recall in history, but the idea that you're plugged into that channel and this whole SpaceCommand, that you played a part of launching that and being a part of what's going on, and now the Golden Dome. I mean, it all plays in and it's synergistic. To me, it's very pivotal for our country, but I mean, a point for a guy from North Dakota to be in the middle of it is kind of untypical.
Well, being the first North Dakotan to ever serve on an Armed Services Committee, that's true. However, and I reminded the president of this in the Oval Office at that news conference. I said, well, Mr. President, 7 years ago or so, when you called me and said, hey, I have this vision of having a space force, I'm wondering if you would carry the legislation to put it in the National Defense Authorization Act. And I thought about it for about 5 seconds and said, what the hell? I have a aerospace school at Grand Forks. We have at that time, SpaceCommand radar station in Cavalier. We have, all these assets and a bit of a space culture, frankly, in North Dakota. Now, fast forward, not only do we have a radar station in Cavalier, we have a Space Force station in Cavalier, and that Space Force station is being modernized as we speak. And I put a little money every year into it, and now it's at the forefront of Golden Dome. I brought the Vice Chief of Space Operations up there about 3-4 weeks, probably 4 weeks ago now. He went to Cavalier. A number of companies came to Cavalier, looked at how we can modernize that, that Cold War era. Park's radar into a very dynamic, contemporary, digitized radar that can help not only for early missile warning and watching space and space assets, which it does very well, but then to become part of the entire value chain that puts a target on bad actors, that sets can set the wheels in motion for firepower, as they call it. Anyway, and then a satellite department now at the University of North Dakota, a brand new aerospace engineering program at the University of North Dakota, which didn't exist 3 years ago and today has 200 students in it. A Space Development Agency ground station at the Grand Forks Air Force Base that will run launch 1, 2, and 3 of the first launches of low Earth orbiting satellites, which will play a key role in all of national defense, but particularly with the Golden Dome. So no, we're at the forefront. We're really at the epicenter of it, and it's kind of remarkable. And I just sort of quietly go along doing my thing and wake up one day and I'm in the Oval Office announcing Golden Dome with Donald Trump.
Well, and part of the thing that I've read about it is dealing with these hypersonic missiles that China's got one I heard that tested at 15,000 miles per hour. I mean, if they can circle the globe in, that would make it less than 2 hours, if they were. But being able to knock that off, and the idea of the speed at which it travels, and if you don't have stuff in space, how do you deal with these bad actors?
It takes layers. It takes layers of communications, and it takes layers of communication that can communicate with one another. It also takes the ability to take brand new, whether it's hypersonic missiles of our own, interceptors of our own, of course, fighter jets, and satellites. But they also have to be able to communicate with legacy systems. That's why a radar station that's been around since the 1970s in Cavalier, North Dakota, which pretty much sees about a third of space, identifies everything that's up there. We now know what those things are. It used to be, when I first started, they didn't know what they were. They just, they had numbers and they'd send it to somebody up the chain and say, hey, number 1344 is now moving closer to one of our satellites. They now know everything. We have a SCIF up there. We have intelligence officers up there. Why do I say all that? I'll say all that because the new has to be able to communicate with the old. And you're a software guy. You know how hard that is, right? To take a legacy system. To take a walkie-talkie that a Marine is carrying in the desert and have that communicate effectively with a satellite constellation. That doesn't happen overnight.
I read a long time ago, Bill Owens had a book called The Fog of War.
Yes, he did.
And being a North Dakotan, I found it intriguing. But the whole idea of a battle, and I love ancient history, and I've read about Alexander the Great and all these guys in ground battling. But when they start attacking and the dust goes up in the air and they can't see, if they're not equipped to communicate, and that's what Admiral Owens was frustrated about was. You got guys shooting each other when they shouldn't be because they can't communicate to each other. And it happens fast.
It happens very fast, and that's largely been resolved, but not completely either with the joint force because you have all these silos, and that's the thing what he wrote about in Fog of War. And remember even after 9/11, Gary, right? There were one of our problems was our intelligence agencies weren't even communicating with one another. And so some of that's been consolidated. The joint force is required more interoperability. We talk a lot about interoperability, and then when you start talking about allies like Canada, you start talking about allies like NATO, you have to have interoperable equipment, or else as allies what you are is just a bunch of silos as opposed to one joint force. And we have a long way to go, but we're getting there fast now because of the technological advancements, and by the way, much less expensive than it used to be.
Do you think Elon Musk, his role, there seems to be some tension. That's a whole other thing we can talk about a little later possibly. But the whole idea, he's so outpaced NASA and all these government because he can just solve a problem now and make a decision, don't have all the bureaucracy. Can we get there in the military?
It's the number one issue in my mind. If you were to do a best of Kevin Cramer on the Armed Services Committee, you'd hear me asking about this every time, especially from the Air Force, Space Force, Space Command, all of the above. Even the ISR missions like in Fargo, that our Happy Hooligans carry out, the use of the old Global Hawks from Grand Forks that are now being turned into hypersonic missile testing airplanes. So rather than shooting down, their sensors now shoot up, because we have to test our own hypersonic missiles, and it's better to have airplanes around the globe doing that rather than having a couple of ships on the seas doing it. There's so much moving so fast that all of that's possible and all of it's getting done, but we have a long way to go, but we have to do it quickly.
Do we? We're going to have to go to the break here shortly, but do we have the will and the resources in Washington to do this? And give me the 30-second answer, and then we're going to dig into it a little further.
Gets back to your original point of Elon Musk. We have to. The modern warfare is more about Silicon Valley than it is about the San Diego shipyard. And there's a lot of venture capital out there, Gary. One of the groups I met with when I was at the Reagan Forum, or I was invited to come and talk to and hear from, were a venture capitalist group that deals specifically in defense in Southern California. So there's a lot of interest, but it's going to be up to the private sector, and that's why. And we'll talk more about it. But the public-private partnership, and I know that's a term that our friend Dick Armey always says, if you're a partner with the government, you're the junior partner. But the only way it happens is with the Elon Musks of the world. But there's a whole bunch of Elon Musks out there. They're just not as big as he is.
We're going to go to the break. When we come back, I want to dig into that. So we've been talking to U.S. Senator Kevin Cramer. We're going to talk a little bit more about this interoperability and private sector versus public. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Stop out to our facility, Highway 22 South. Let us build a truck for you.
Hello and welcome to the MHA Interpretive Center. It's the perfect stop along the Lewis and Clark Trail and the cultural hub of the Mandan, Hidatsa, and Arikara Nation. Nestled along the shores of Lake Sagagawea in Newtown, North Dakota, 1 mile west of the Four Bears Casino. You can enjoy amphitheater performances, art exhibitions, and educational workshops utilizing our Living Cultural Center. Enjoy some coffee, browse our gift shop, and learn about the original people of this land. Learn more at mhanation.com/interpretive center.
Welcome to Arrowhead Cleaners. Newly renovated, modernized, and ready to make your cleaning needs hassle-free. From commercial and residential wash and fold laundry services to the latest in professional dry cleaning techniques, we are dedicated to your unique needs, offering alterations, fabrications, and even custom hat making. So whether you're a busy professional, a family on the go, or even a rodeo champion, Arrowhead Cleaners is here to take your things from messed up to dressed up. Now celebrating our 64th year in Arrowhead Plaza.
Home on the Range offers a nurturing place for teens who may have just come from an unsafe or traumatic environment. Here, they receive therapy and education services centered around animals, and the surrounding nature provides opportunities for work, fun, and healing. Life skills learned at Home on the Range are carried with residents when they return to the community with new talents and a greater appreciation for themselves and others.
Are you dealing with arthritis, nerve and back pain, dry skin, or superficial wounds, but found no relief? Give Stewart's Natural Health a try. For over 4 decades, Stewart's Natural Health has been helping people and animals with herbal and natural oil lotions, ointments, and creams with a mission to help you relieve pain and feel your best using the power of nature. Discover the safe, drug-free solution to your pain, guaranteed or your money back. Visit stewartsnatural.health today.
West River Equipment of Mandan is here to help you maintain peak productivity in your operation. As an authorized dealer for many high-quality equipment lines, we have the new and used equipment it takes to make your farming, ranching, or construction operation profitable and efficient. West River Equipment also has the parts on hand and the experienced technicians in our shop to get your equipment back in action fast. Find what you need at West River Equipment on Old Red Trail in Mandan.
Welcome back to OpenRange. We're talking to U.S. Senator Kevin Cramer about Golden Dome and SpaceCommand and all those things. So, Senator, before the break, we were just talking about how the private sector and this public-private and all that stuff. But the reality is, I've worked in Silicon Valley. I've seen the way they move and venture capital works and the way the government operates. You know, it's like not black and white. It's a different universe. And so how do we do that? I mean, how does the government do that? I mean, you're in the middle of it.
It takes a culture shift in the Department of Defense, which is happening. Remember, last year at the UAS Summit in Grand Forks, I didn't bring a 4-star general like I usually do. I brought Palmer Luckey. Palmer Luckey was 19 years old when he sold his goggles to Meta and he became a billionaire. And now he's a multi-billionaire, and he has Anduril Industries, which is one of the newest and also one of the largest defense contractors. Not because of government contracts so much as because he's an entrepreneur and innovator. Same with what's it called? Palantir. Palantir is another major company, largest defense contractor in the world. Today, a few years ago, it was a startup. Palantir. And so you've got York, a company that makes satellites. And then you've got even smaller companies like eSpace, Greg Weiler's company that I know him very well. And everybody's a player in the Golden Dome. Dan Sullivan, my friend, senator friend from Alaska, he and I introduced the legislation to create Golden Dome. And we did an industry day in the SCIF, where each of these companies and others come in and show us what they've got, one at a time. What's happened is out in Silicon Valley, so there's a group called Silicon Valley Defense, and they're the venture capitalists in the defense space. And defense provides an opportunity for technologies that are also applicable in space being one of them, of course, in the marketplace, in private sector. So what's happened now is you got advanced companies. Space Development Agency is one of them, an agency within the Space Force. So we stood up before the Space Force to be autonomous, then get rolled into Space Force, but maintain some autonomy. And they're the ones. My friend Derek Turnier, Dr. Turnier, was appointed under the Trump administration, survived the entire Trump administration, the entire Biden administration, is still the director of Space Development Agency. And he's got that mindset. But there are others as well. I mentioned General Gutlein earlier, the deputy chief of space operations. That's the deputy chief of staff of the Space Force. So he's overseen Golden Dome. He's got that same mindset. It takes a different acquisition mind, and that's a challenge, Gary. I'm telling you, every time I find an innovator, there are 10 people in the swamp that want to destroy that person. And I've stood up for all of them. I tell them all when they come to my office to be interviewed before the confirmation hearings. I always tell them, if you take chances that others wouldn't take, I promise to not only will I not be the senator that says, aha, I got you, you loser, we're taking you down now, because there's a lot of members of Congress that love those moments. I said, I'll defend you to the teeth. And I've done it with a few of them. A few of them and that word's gotten out. So these innovative companies sort of come to me on a regular basis now, because they know that they have it with me, an open mind and open ear, and they're getting more and more of that within the Defense Department itself.
When I was out in Silicon Valley and raising venture capital on Sand Hill and down the road, I mean, one of the almost first questions is from those venture capitalists, they want to know if you've been bankrupt, where you failed. They almost want to know that more than your success, where you can pound your chest and overinflate what you maybe do.
Yeah.
Because they want to say, did you learn something? Because, many great people, it's all that coming out of that failure that really drives it. And the government doesn't like to think that way,
Oh, that's for sure.
And so
there's a very recently famous episode in the Department of Defense where I went to bat for a guy that everyone else tried to fire, and come to find out, he's still there, and it took all of my political capital almost to save him. Except in saving him, I've doubled my political capital for that very reason, because he's an innovator, and he's the one that, which you asked about Elon Musk. Elon Musk, there was an effort, and I can say all this because it's very public, because I asked the chief of staff, or the Secretary of the Air Force, this question on the stand. I said, is it true, maybe it wasn't him, it was somebody anyway. I said, is the rumor true that Tranche 2 and Tranche 3 transport layers of Space Development Agency's LEO satellites has been canceled, and that they're considering giving the contract over to Starshield, which is the Elon Musk's defense constellation? Well, no one had heard that before publicly, and nobody denied it publicly, but it's no longer canceled. And the reason I say that is because the contractors were not Starshield that won the bids. It was two different ones. See, that's the other thing, Gary.
Wow.
This interoperability thing, a lot of it has to do with open architecture, which you're familiar with, right? And we're going that route more and more, where software is the new fuel. It's the new jet fuel. But you have to have an open architecture that certainly your enemies shouldn't be able to obviously manipulate or exploit, but companies need to be able to create systems that work with other systems from other companies. And open architecture allows that, and modern technology allows us to do that and still protect it.
Pivoting a little bit, I was involved with some technical stuff with DARPA. Is DARPA still is major force? I mean, because it's kind of behind the wall, if you will, and to
Sure
reach
is.
out into the private sector for innovation, and you get opportunities. But DARPA is it still as strong in the defense, helping America move forward? Keep us
There's no
safe?
question. It's a very important part of the ecosystem, but there are others as well. There's a DIA, the Defense Innovation Agency that we stood up 2 or 3 years ago. It's even more aggressive than, it's not as secretive as DARPA, but it's more out there in the space you're talking about. So yes, DARPA is still an important player, as is DIA, as are the various services themselves that have some of the same infrastructure. I've just been trying to get it all to communicate better with one another. And anyway, it is very dynamic. You'd love it, actually. You'd probably thrive in that atmosphere right now. But it is always up against the traditionalists. Always, Gary. It's my greatest pet peeve.
Do members of Congress and the Senate get it? Are there enough? I mean, I just think I want to pivot to
Yes,
North
sir.
Dakota and the oil industry.
Yes, sir.
Very few legislators really understand what's going on. The oil industry is always trying to drag them out there to understand fracking. I mean, I think they get it now, many, many years later. But can Washington and the senators and the pressure and the committees and their silos of information get their head around this?
I want to be very careful. I work with 99 people who think they should be president. So
Fair enough.
And some of them probably should be, but anyway, not all. Having said that, to answer your question, we all find an area that we're passionate about. Some come in with a certain amount of expertise. Some of it's reflective of the people they work for, as it is with me. So to socialize that sort of information or mindset requires champions. This is why, when Trump, we had a pretty funny moment at the news conference when I said, Mr. President, I was very honored when you called and asked me to carry the ball for you to create Space Force until I realized that no one else would do it. And he laughed. He said, that's not true. That's not true. It's kind of true. It's kind of true. And so the guy from Kindred stumbles into this thing called Space Force. Now, I had some assets. That's why I accepted it, because of UND and because of Grand Forks and Cavalier. And frankly, having missiles in Minot is the early stages of a Space Command, then to turn into a Space Force, were those missiles, intercontinental ballistic missiles with nuclear warheads on them. That was the beginning of a Space Command. Strategic forces. So I had some things going for me, but does anybody else have the same level of passion as I do? Not quite, but there's a piece that Fargo Forum did, pretty decent piece on my role in all of this, and it's some of it's luck, but some of it's being in the right place at the right time, but some of it's also having those assets around you and then having the ability to socialize that information. But they referred to the fact that Democrats call me the godfather of the Space Force. And they do it respectfully, kind of affectionately, but a little tongue-in-cheek, because they all thought it was crazy. None of them think it's crazy anymore.
Yeah. Well, it becomes so critical to our long-term security.
It does. But there's a trust in it. And I guess that's sort of my point. Does everybody wrap their head around it the same? No, they don't. But I can't wrap my head around some of the tax policy that the Finance Committee deals with, or some of the healthcare policy.
Yeah, that's fair enough. I can appreciate that with the colleagues. So we're going to do the break. We come back. I want to dig in a little bit more from the technology aspect of just the whole concept of what this really means, because we see what Israel
You've
does.
probably already
with Iron Dome.
exhausted my capacity to talk about
we're
this.
probably. I don't believe that. So we've been talking to Senator Kevin Cramer. I'm your host, Gary. I'm going to stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Ace Fluke Trailers of Dickinson is a family-owned dealer with expert staff that know their products front to back. We stock over 150 units of all types and can custom order a trailer with the unique features and capabilities you require for brands you can trust. Our experienced service team is the reason we're also the best place to have your trailer customized or repaired. Count on Baseflug Trailers of Dickinson to keep you hauling.
Are you looking for something special or one of a kind? At Bassett Motors, we can help you find exactly what you want.
Come on in and experience how small town hospitality and personal service can make car buying a pleasure.
We know interest rates are important to you. We have multiple lenders to negotiate your lowest payment.
Visit us on Highway 281 in Carrington, North Dakota, and online at BassettMotors.com. Bassett Motors, where our customers send their friends.
Yeah, U.S. Cattlemen is a member organization that each member has a vote in anything we do with policy. We're representing the independent cattleman or the cow-calf guy or an independent feeder or whatever. We like to support the independent producer. We're talking about mandatory ID, we're talking about cool, we're talking about all the legislation that's going to be coming down with the new administration. There's going to be lots of moving and shaking, so always check us out at our website, uscattleman.org.
I'm $27,000 in credit card debt.
Okay.
You have to radically do something different, because if you keep doing what you've been doing, you're going to keep getting what you've been getting.
Now's not the time to be doing math. The time to be doing math was when we didn't go into $200,000 of debt.
If you are freaked out and you're stuck in these debt payments and you think it has to be a part of your life, it doesn't.
We're the ladies of Another View. Join us at 9 a.m. weekday mornings.
We'll discuss issues you care about from local and national perspectives.
You'll hear unique stories from fellow North Dakotans, plus topics in the national spotlight.
Start your day off right with Ladies of Another View.
Weekdays at 9 a.m. on Beck TV and online at beck.news.
Welcome back to Open Range. I'm your host, Gary Emmett, talking to U.S. Senator Kevin Cramer about the Golden Dome and SpaceCommand and all those kind of things. So, Senator, when we talked about the different layers about satellite, and what I think is interesting when we first started the segment earlier in the show, you said we have no offensive weapons in space. And we think of it as being defense. And so, I mean, because you're shooting missiles to knock something down, it's just that you aren't pointing it towards someone, if you will, I guess. But the idea that we need to, I mean, sometimes you have to kind of take a big stick and hit somebody.
Yeah, and there are different,
and maybe I'd be careful how to say that.
I have to be a little careful because we get into classified information. However, you're correct. Now, it might be something as basic as a satellite carrying a spear, or having a shotgun on it, or because there's a lot of stuff in space. But you do have to be. Remember, a couple of years ago, maybe not even quite, some congressman on the House side said out loud what they shouldn't have said. I shouldn't say shouldn't have said, but what was classified, and that is that Russia has an EMP type of a weapon, a nuclear sort of weapon that can knock out LEO, low Earth orbit satellites with one blast. And it turned out, that became public. Well, that's pretty significant. Now, that's not a weapon in space necessarily, but they can send a missile into space to blow out low Earth orbit. And the reason that's important is because, I equate space to like the home field advantage for a football team. If a superior football team goes to another place and plays an inferior football team, the best thing that can happen to that inferior team is a really bad rainstorm, because it sort of levels the playing field. Well, that's what would happen in space if it went blank, that our enemies would have an advantage. So, or at least there would be evening advantages. So yeah, we do have to have some weapons, but here's the other technology that's advancing, and I'm hope I don't scare you into another whole rabbit hole here, but are lasers. So there's a lot.
Yeah, I want to talk about lasers.
Of course you did.
Because I've been reading about it. That's a total technology. That's a game changer.
It's a game-changing technology, and there's a lot
and
of work
hypersonic, you might as well shut them down. Forget about wasting all that money if you could get there quick enough.
You knew how? Yeah, well, right. That's so speed is the deal, and being able to track hypersonic missiles is a big challenge. But which is again why low Earth orbit is so important. But it's also why the other layers that are important. So back to the Russia being able to blow out low Earth orbit. This is why you can't abandon all the other things, the other layers like persistent air, with things like Global Hawks and MQ-9s that fly out of North Dakota, or next generation ISR, largely unmanned systems, right? And then you have even other things now with small drones being able to be lethal. They're just you have to cover it all, and so those are the layers. But if you have directed energy, which is a laser, and that requires a lot of energy, but let's just say there's a lot of advancement in that area. It is the game changer because you could take out a satellite with it from Earth if you had more enough energy, or you could take out a group of drones just flying over your secret location or your missile site.
Is the concept, I mean, I'm getting way over my ability to understand it, but with laser, you're dealing with the speed of light. With hypersonic, you're dealing with the speed of sound, 5 times the speed of sound or something.
Yeah, right.
All of a sudden, you can just go zip, 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 and be done.
No, that's right.
That's the concept.
The concept is it's an immediate weapon. It's the bullets there fast. With a hypersonic missile, of course, to your point, if it's traveling 15,000 miles per hour, it still takes a couple hours to get from around the world. And some of it is even identifying it early enough to, all of those are challenges.
Yeah,
yes,
because
right.
I was reading the Wall Street Journal referred to, so it was public information, but the idea that, if Russia shoots, it's still got to cross 11 time zones, and you want to get it before, while it's not in Russia. So how do you get it before it gets up in the atmosphere? Because it does, slow down, and then the same way before it hits its target.
Yeah, that's right.
But it's a challenge of trying to, so we sit up here in North Dakota thinking, okay, are we safe? We're not New York, we're not LA.
Let me tell you something interesting about that example you just used. Because of the Space Development Agency's investment in Grand Forks and the ground station for LEO, should Russia launch a hypersonic missile from Russia, the first people that will know are in Grand Forks, North Dakota. They will see it in this show. Maybe at some point I can take you in there.
Interesting.
Yeah, and just see the people operating those satellites will be the first people to see it coming, and they'll be the first people to be able to identify where it might be heading.
So when I lived in Colorado Springs, we had NORAD in the mountain there.
Right, and SpaceCommand is in Colorado Springs.
And so SpaceCommand is, just to understand it, that is really dealing with just SpaceCommand in general, not dealing with all things.
It's dealing with the domain of space. So Space Force is the service that recruits, trains, and equips Guardians. Space Command is the command, much like Central Command is, or Europe Command is in Europe, Central Command is in the Middle East, and so on. Indo-Pacific Command is in the Indo-Pacific. Space Command is in space. So that involves all of the services, but the service specific is Space Force. So back to your NORAD example. NORAD is the other area where the United States and Canada work together on protecting the Arctic and frankly, our borders as well.
So let's pivot a little bit to your trip to Canada. So, Trump wants it to be a 51st state. I knew that was never going to happen, but it sure allows him to get everybody running out into this bush over here talking about stuff while he's doing this stuff over here. He's a genius.
He's masterful. So, yeah. But I hope he calculated this one okay. But
this was kind of a little bit over the top. And frankly, we got a liberal back in Canada when we should have had a conservative if he would have just, he misjudged, in my opinion. But I'm not going to question.
Anything's better than Justin Trudeau.
Yeah, amen to that. Yeah. So anyway, so you went up and met with them, and the whole idea of the Golden Dome and the part of Canada and Russia coming over, whatever. Talk a little bit about the response from the Prime Minister.
Really important, because Tuesday I'm in the Oval Office talking about Golden Dome with the President. The President says Canada is even interested in this, and he said it a couple times. That's a message. When Donald Trump says things, you think it's crazy, it's generally strategic. Okay, so I go to, on Friday, I'm part of this mission trip with 4 Democratic senators and me. And because I have a couple of leadership positions when it comes to the U.S.-Canadian relationship and lots of parliamentary and premier relationships. So I went to meet Mark Carney. Now, interestingly, Gary, we were the first U.S. Senate delegation to meet with a Prime Minister of Canada in 5 years. Well, we meet with Prime Ministers of pretty much every country about every 5 months on a regular basis. That tells you something about Justin Trudeau's hospitality, in my view. And of course, I've wrangled with him a little bit. We were the first delegation, of course, to meet with Mark Carney. He had just been in Washington meeting with the president, and we were the first ones to meet with a brand new now ambassador to Canada, Pete Hoekstra, who was a former member of the House of Representatives, and I've known him a while. But I brought up right away national defense, Canada's very low contribution to NATO as a founding member. The only one lower, I think, is Brussels, and that before you expect to get Donald Trump's full attention, you better fix this a little bit. And he's talked about Golden Dome, and to his credit, Prime Minister Carney said, well, we're going to get to our 2% probably this year. That 2% is the contribution from your GDP contribution to NATO,
yeah.
and to your own defense. You talked about NORAD. NORAD is something we already do together. There's a Canadian, like I said, officer at Space Force Station in Cavalier, always has been. But it's pretty minimal. We can't defend against Russia and China without defending the Arctic and without defending the northern part of the North American continent. China is very active in the Arctic. They're establishing little communities. They're going in and meeting with mayors of villages and indigenous people. I mean, they're very, very active, much like they do here with our PTAs and our universities. And so they consider themselves now an Arctic country. And so we have to pay attention. We have to defend those skies. And they understand that in Canada, and they want to be a bigger part of it. And I was very encouraged. I actually think it's the gateway to a larger contribution and larger discussion about trade with Canada.
And I mean, because whether we're dealing with agriculture and automobiles, I mean,
right.
there's so many things going on in Canada, why it's so important, even though there's, 35 million people?
There's 41 million Canadians,
41
about
million.
300 million more Americans than that, and that's not irrelevant, and that's the leverage Donald Trump understands. At the same time, where I think he's may not either understand or it's leverage, speaking of interoperability, the interconnection with our supply chains for things like automobiles and manufacturing tractors and bobcats and whatnot is on purpose. It was by design. It was strategic on the part of those companies. And so it's a little bit hard now. We just have to fix it, Gary. The bottom line is they need to do more for their own national defense. They have to clean up some things on the agricultural side where they have unfair advantages over our producers. Donald Trump understands that, but I think that understanding is becoming more and more mutual, and I expect that there'll be some good talks very, very soon.
Well, and when you look at the natural resources, they may not have the people, but there's a big geography up there, and there's a lot of stuff between. And we need to be working between here and Alaska. I mean, obviously, getting to and from is a big deal.
Yep.
So
and friendshoring, we talk a lot about onshoring. Donald Trump talks a lot about onshoring. I think he's right about that. There should be certain supply chains that should be ours. We should be vertically integrated. But we can also do a lot more friend-shoring. And I think this is where we have to identify our enemies, our friends, and our frenemies. And Donald Trump's been great already, bringing, going to Saudi Arabia, UAE, Qatar, talking about Syria in possible partnership ways. It may be distasteful to some people, but it's very, very wise, because if you can win over an enemy or a frenemy, or even win over an enemy to the category of frenemy, you're making some important strides.
he's pretty. What I like is he pushes every area, and there's nothing out of bounds for him.
Nope.
And it's that innovation is that entrepreneurial business thing. That's fascinating.
And that's, by the way, why Carney and I think will get along well.
Yeah.
Carney's a business guy. He's not a politician. He was, bank president. He's they actually have a lot more in common. Their personalities are dramatically different.
Yeah.
But but he's not to be trifled with either. He's sharp.
So when we're going to go to the break, when we come back, I want to talk a little bit about Mexico, talk a little bit about our military, we want to talk about Pete Hegseth. There's a couple of things I want to kind of touch, as long as I got you. So we've been talking to you, Senator Kevin Cramer. I'm your host, Gary Raymond. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Hey y'all, it's Trent on the loose. I want to tell you, Lady Blue and I, we got a lot of miles together, but you know what? You and I got a lot of miles together as well. And all I want to do is bring to you the information on how we maintain a domestic supply of food and fuel for future generations. So I'm going to continue to travel the world and unearth the stories that make it possible that we can live in a free United States of America.
Welcome to Arrowhead Cleaners. Newly renovated, modernized, and ready to make your cleaning needs hassle-free. From commercial and residential wash and fold laundry services to the latest in professional dry cleaning techniques, we are dedicated to your unique needs, offering alterations, fabrications, and even custom hat making. So whether you're a busy professional, a family on the go, or even a rodeo champion, Arrowhead Cleaners is here to take your things from messed up to dressed up. Now celebrating our 64th year in Arrowhead Plaza. Are you dealing with arthritis, nerve and back pain, dry skin, or superficial wounds, but found no relief? Give Stewart's Natural Health a try. For over 4 decades, Stewart's Natural Health has been helping people and animals with herbal and natural oil lotions, ointments, and creams with a mission to help you relieve pain and feel your best using the power of nature. Discover the safe, drug-free solution to your pain, guaranteed or your money back. Visit stewartsnatural.health today.
West River Equipment of Mandan is here to help you maintain peak productivity in your operation. As an authorized dealer for many high-quality equipment lines, we have the new and used equipment it takes to make your farming, ranching, or construction operation profitable and efficient. West River Equipment also has the parts on hand and the experienced technicians in our shop to get your equipment back in action fast. Find what you need at West River Equipment on Old Red Trail in Mandan.
At Schatz Crossroads, we make 8 gallons of homemade ranch dressing every day, so you can smother your dinner salad with it, dip those crispy golden French fries in it, and dunk your breaded chicken strips. You can even cover your... Wait, no. You can't put ranch on steak. Or can you? Schatz Crossroads. Don't forget the ranch.
Since 1980, Circle Sanitation has been providing exceptional waste hauling services to every customer, big or small. Whether you just need reliable weekly pickup, roll-off containers for major projects at home or the construction site, or your needs are somewhere in between, Circle Sanitation has you covered. We're a locally owned family business and currently seeking dependable men and women to add to our team. Wages are competitive and benefits comprehensive. Call us today or visit circlesanitation.com.
Welcome back to Open Range. We're talking to U.S. Senator Kevin Cramer. We've been talking about north of the border, SpaceCommand and Golden Dome. We're going to go to the southern border. So, Senator, there's been a lot of talk about going after the cartels. I mean, obviously, we need to secure our border and deal with that. And Trump, it's been amazing what's happened.
Unbelievable.
I mean, like he said in his State of the Union, when he said, all we needed was a different president. We needed different laws. I mean, I get it. But also, how do we deal with all the drugs and the cartels? And I'm all in for it. Let's send some shoulders down there and clean up.
So the challenge is, first of all, I agree. What he's been able to accomplish, largely just by personality as much as anything. The welcome, he rolled up the welcome mat and threw it away. So no, and then starts deporting a few people, and they start taking them really, really seriously. And he's basically stopped about 96 to 98% of the illegal crossings almost immediately. So it's remarkable. But he does need some law changes, and he knows that, and he's asking for resources in the big, beautiful bill because we need to institutionalize some of this so that future presidents don't just say, well, they roll out the welcome mat all over again. And we need some assets down there, and there's lots of things to talk about. But with regard to the cartels, I agree that as far as I'm concerned, they do fit the definition of a foreign terrorist organization, and they ought to be treated as such. And I get that you probably want to have a relationship with the current president, and you'd like the president to give you the green light to come in and use your military might to take them out. But if you don't get it, I think you have to sort of warn her and say, hey, we're not tolerating this. I mean, if you can name call an emergency at the northern border over fentanyl, you ought to be able to declare World War III at the southern border. So and now people are going to take that literally, and I'm in trouble. But I'm with you. I think that they need to be on alert. Now, we have a lot of military down there right now, which is, by the way, when I talk to our military men and women down there and their commanders, they love the mission. They love the fact that they're doing something every single day that saves lives in the United States of America. And that includes our active service members as well as our guardsmen.
So the whole, sometimes if you just watch Fox News or you watch CNN or MSNBC, all those national networks, you get such different stories, and then the morale and the people that are border agents, what is really the real story?
Well, I hear, I talk to, border agents, and everything I hear is that they're very, very pleased to have this, this mission and this power to do what they signed up to do. That said, they're also exhausted, and they need more resources, and they're running out of resources. I remember Donald Trump at one point said, he came and talked to Republican senators before he was sworn in, said he had all the resources he needs. We have all the resources we need, and come to find out there weren't that many resources, because we really do have to appropriate for certain things, and you have to have money. So there's $175,000 in the big beautiful bill just for border security that will help put more people on the border. It will help put up, build some more of the wall. It'll help put in holding stations and processing facilities right at the border, so you don't have this excuse that, well, we don't have enough facilities, therefore we're going to turn people back into the middle of the country. We have to take all of that away. So I think there's probably some fatigue, and they could certainly use some more help in doing the incredible job that they're already doing.
This big, beautiful bill that's been going around, and the big, the spending that's going to come from it. So, Musk kind of came after Trump on it in the Senate and just said, business as usual, just spend, spend, spend. But part of that spending is tax cuts, right?
Right.
And people don't always understand that. I mean.
Yeah. So part of the challenge is a couple of things. One is, you're right, there are the tax cuts. We want to make the Trump tax cuts permanent, which the Senate tried to do that, but the House rejected it and wanted to go for the big enchilada. It would already be law, as well as the money for the border and national security. We'd be off to the second tranche, second chunk. That said, we went with big and beautiful. So we cannot fail. If we fail, that's just not an option. So we have to pass it. You're right, there are additional tax cuts. So no tax on tips, no tax on Social Security benefits, varying degrees, and no tax on overtime. That's a lot of money, a lot of revenue that's lost. And they're tax cuts that aren't generally pro-growth. More people get to keep more of their own money, but it's not the kind of thing that generates a lot of investment like business taxes. So that has to be paid for somehow, or it becomes part of the debt and the deficit. Then there's more spending as well, and that includes the things like the border and national security. I personally think first thing you have to do is ignore the scoring. So the official scores, like the Congressional Budget Office and other groups that quote score, that in other words, they're looking at things linear. They're saying, oh, lower taxes, less revenue, therefore that adds to the deficit. Well, they were wrong last time and they're wrong this time. The growth opportunities that come from that, from lower taxes, don't get scored nearly well enough. In fact, they were off by over $1.5 trillion in the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. They said that it would create that much more of a deficit. We generated more than that just in revenue.
And that was an article that went for just the viewers to understand a little bit further. Explain that because when a bill goes forward, they have to put projections together and say, here's the cost, here's the impact, because that's just the way it works, whether it's state or federal government. And the way they were doing it, they were off so much that they would make these statements, and you guys would make in Washington decisions based on bad data.
Yep. So yes, that's exactly right, Gary. And we really pushed the issue in 2017. I was in the House at the time to push the Congressional Budget Office, otherwise known as CBO, to use dynamic scoring. So if you just use static scoring, so we lower your taxes by $1 million, that adds $1 million to the deficit. That's static. But if we lower your taxes by $1 million and that allows you to invest in another company that generates $2 million, that's a plus $2 million. But they don't score the dynamic part, just the linear part, or the static part. That's the first issue. We force them to do a little more dynamic scoring, but they're always ultra conservative in their scoring, because if they're going to be wrong, they don't want to be wrong on the wrong side. They'd rather be wrong in the deficit projection on the low side, or on the high side, and then when it turns out better than that, they're okay. I think they're wrong. I think you need dynamic scoring. I think you need to have, here's what it comes down to for a guy like me. I believe in pro-growth tax policy. I absolutely believe it. I think it's been proven every single time. Ronald Reagan proved it. Bill Clinton and Dick Armey proved it. And I think Donald Trump, he has proven it once, and I think he'll prove it again. If you unleash American innovation and entrepreneurial or culture, or capitalist culture, you're going to generate more revenue. That's said, people like Ron Johnson and Rick Scott are absolutely right. We should be also looking for more ways to cut, not just in the SNAP program, but in all the programs. Ron Johnson wants to go line by line, which he has done. And we can do that. We just can't do it in this context because it has to move so fast. And you don't get any Democratic votes, obviously. It's a plain shirts and skins exercise. Ron wants to slow it down. I wanted to do the piece by piece, but Donald Trump did not. So we're doing the big, beautiful bill. But what I would say, Gary, too, is people have to know that this isn't the end of it. We still have 2 more opportunities in this Congress to use budget reconciliation, which means it only requires 50 votes in the Senate rather than 60. We can still use budget reconciliation 2 more times to tweak the tax code, to find more cuts, to look at every program line by line, go back to a which is what Ron Johnson's suggesting, go back to a pre-pandemic baseline, add in inflation and population, but build from there.
And that would cut a huge amount.
Yeah, we'd get down to about $6.5 billion, or $6.5 trillion, $6 to $6.5 trillion baseline, or total budget, rather than this roughly $7 trillion that we'll have now.
And so the attitude in Washington with Trump, we got midterms coming up here soon. Mm-hmm. And Trump's got this short window. He's been going
Which is why the big beautiful bill is important.
That's why it's important. So the Republicans can stay in power and stay in majority, but that's going to be a challenge.
Well, it'll all be determined, I think, by the outcome of this. It won't just be by the passage. The reason passage is important, and the reason that the clock is ticking, and why they want to do a big beautiful bill rather than the small ones, and there's merit to this, is that we want to get that economy churning really, really fast, so that the midterms a year from now, when we're well into the heat of the campaigns, people are going, wow, inflation's down, interest rates are down. Right now, interest rates are up a bit, not because of the Federal Reserve, but because the other countries are reluctant to buy our treasuries, our bond markets. If you follow that sort of thing, you've seen there's a bit of a problem. This is a vulnerability of ours as a large borrowing nation. So that's a lot of that's due to our large debt and deficit. So Ron Johnson's right. We've got to. This is why I say pay close attention to this guy. I think, Gary, and this is what gets me in trouble, but I'm going to say it. This is why we have to look more closely at the things that Donald Trump won't look at, to include Medicaid. My gosh, we allow California to get 90% federal funding for work-capable, middle-aged men that prefer to get freebies rather than go to work. That's crap. And what they do is they put a provider tax on the providers. Oh, and then they get the providers to raise the price a little bit for their health care, so that they get literally more money than it costs to pay them back, and the state makes money off of a provider tax. That's what the expansion of Medicaid did.
That whole idea of dealing with those entitlements that come part of it got to be dealt with at some point. If they said to me, I have to work an extra year to retire, I'd be fine. We got to do something to fix some of this stuff.
Well, you're never going to stop working, so
because
I know that as a fact. But you are a good illustration of the fact that we are productive longer in life. Yeah. Right? And the fact we don't index that somehow, or use those kinds of tables into the Social Security program, doesn't make any sense.
It's time to fix it. Well, Senator, I appreciate you coming on. We covered a lot of Golden Dome, talked a lot about SpaceCommand, even talked about the southern border. So thanks for joining us.
Oh, it's always a pleasure.
So we've been talking to U.S. Senator Kevin Cramer. I'm your host, Gary Ameneth. Thanks for watching.
Now you can have the personalized forecast at your fingertips when you need it. Beck's exclusive Weather Insight is information tailored to you. Radar, weather alerts, forecasts, and videos. Download the free Weather on Beck News app. Search your app store now.
I'm $27,000 in credit card debt.
You have to radically do something different, because if you keep doing what you've been doing, you're going to keep getting what you've been getting.
Now's not the time to be doing math. The time to be doing math was when we didn't go into $200,000 of debt.
If you are freaked out and you're stuck in these debt payments and you think it has to be a part of your life, it doesn't.
Hey y'all, it's Trent on the loose. I want to tell you, Lady Blue and I, we got a lot of miles together, but you know what? You and I got a lot of miles together as well. And all I want to do is bring to you the information on how we maintain a domestic supply of food and fuel for future generations. So I'm going to continue to travel the world and unearth the stories that make it possible that we can live in a free United States of America.
My Towels solved a problem that we've all had with towels. You go into the stores and they feel lotiony and soft, but then you get them home and they wind dry you. That's why I made My Towels. They actually work, they're soft, and they absorb. And now I'm excited to announce 2 brand new lines of My Towels. What makes them the best towels ever is they're now made with 100% long staple Shapir cotton. This is a combed ring spun cotton that makes My Towels even softer and more absorbent than ever. And now you get a 6-piece set for an amazing introductory sale price as low as $29.98. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to get My Towels for only $29.98. Or you can get my designer premium line for just $20 more. Either way, you save 50% now on all My Towels. They actually work. What a concept. This offer won't last long, so please order now.
mypillow.com. If you don't have a good dental plan, or if your employer doesn't offer dental benefits, this is the deal you're looking for. Get the Carefree Dental Card, and for just $15.95 a month, you can see the dentist anytime and pay a whole lot less.
On my first visit, I saved $650. We used to pay full price at the dentist. Boy, was that dumb. We just saved $705.
Call the number on your screen and request your Carefree Dental Card free. We'll send your card and complete details at no cost and no obligation today. Unlike other dental plans, there's no activation fee with Carefree Dental, so call now to get your card at no cost today. Call during this TV offer and we'll also include free vision benefits and free prescription drug benefits too. See for yourself why Carefree is the best deal in dental. Call now.
Call 1-800-518-6077 to get your Carefree Dental Card and member guide free. Call 1-800-518-6077.
Welcome to Culture Crossroads. I'm Andrew Southwick. This is the show that covers the latest in politics, pop culture, and everyday people. The Fed raising and lowering the interest rate sounds like another way for the government to manipulate our behavior through the financial markets. We stand at the intersection of faith and freedom. They have to know that the jabs injure people, so why do they recommend it? Join me every week on Culture Crossroads, right here on Beck TV.
We are rewriting Hollywood's script for our kids. I'm pop culture expert Tina Griffin, and as a former Hollywood actress, I'm giving you a behind-the-scenes look at how today's entertainment is eroding the foundational development of America's youth and how to safely navigate this pop culture chaos. Knowledge is power. Parents want solutions. It's time to get the power back in your hands and reclaim the right to decide who and what should influence your kids.
Weekdays at 2 p.m. Central Time on Beck TV.
We're the ladies of Another View. Join us at 9 a.m. weekday mornings.
We'll discuss issues you care about from local and national perspectives.
You'll hear unique stories from fellow North Dakotans, plus topics in the national spotlight.
Start your day off right with Ladies of Another View.
Weekdays at 9 a.m. on Beck TV and online at beck.news.